It's a Monday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Rob Fisher, Memphis Grizzlies sideline reporter, has shared on social media his thoughts on the Grizzlies schedule. I will give my thoughts on the schedule, thanks with a little bit of help from Mr. Fisher, plus a one-on-one tournament in Memphis to find the best hooper. Who might be the best hooper on the Grizzlies in that scenario if it were to play out? And FedEx Forum renovations have been approved. What that will look like and the significance to the Grizzlies sticking around in the Bluff City. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you 1,000 times for being with me on this edition of the podcast. It is I, Joe Mullinax, one of your hosts, your only host this time around, no DeMichael Cole. He's a busy beaver. He's out there moving and shaking and doing all sorts of important things. He'll be back with us later on this week. You'll be with me the next 30 minutes or so talking Memphis Grizzlies basketball here on Locked On Grizzlies. And I am so glad wherever you are joining me that you are doing so on this wonderful day. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. As proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, literally anywhere you get a podcast. Make sure you're making DeMichael Cole, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal, my co-host for this podcast, and myself, part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that an episode drops. If you are not already an everydayer, become one. Join us each and every time that we go on this little journey around our corner of the internet that we like to call Locked On Grizzlies. It's good to see you again. It's been too long. These days and weeks as the summer comes to a close, fall is approaching. Very excited for preseason basketball. August turns to September here in the next week or so. You can feel it starting to creep back up on us, and that's a good thing. We love talking Grizzlies basketball, of course, here on Locked On Grizzlies, and I love listening and reading to the talking about basketball that Rob Fisher does at the Fish Nation on X. He is the Grizzlies sideline reporter. He has been for quite some time. A tremendous job that he does. And every year I look forward to the Grizzlies schedule coming out because I know that at the Fish Nation on X is going to post his breakdown of the Grizzlies schedule. He does a phenomenal job taking a look at national TV and other nooks and crannies of the schedule that maybe might fall through the cracks. So again, at the Fish Nation on X, shout out to Fish. We're going to use this as a source to look at some key stretches of the Grizzlies season. For example, the fact that 8 of their first 11 games are at home. That is a massively important piece of this season for Memphis, including the first 3. So literally Wednesday, October 22nd, all the way through the 25th, the Grizzlies are in the friendly confines of FedEx Forum. That is huge. That means they have a chance to get into a routine, get some practices in. It's almost like an extended preseason in a way, the ability to have that opportunity to play those games at home. That's a good start to their campaign. 8 of those first 11 at home. Then, after that, 9 of the second 11 are on the road. It's funny how that works. The Grizzlies have multiple 4-game road trips in that span. That is going to be really interesting. I hate how the NBA did this. There's always scheduling quirks when you have this many teams and this many games. It makes all the sense in the world for there to be some disconnect, but still, it just looks a little funny when you have, again, 8 of the first 11 at the friendly confines of FedEx Forum on 191 Beale, and then you're on the road basically, changing up cities. If you look at how that schedule breakdown is actually done, you're talking about the Grizzlies being in a position where they will be in a different city for almost 11 consecutive games. The only exception to that being when they play 2 games. Though that's not true. They will be on their own. I misread that one. I apologize. So they start that stretch that we were just talking about, the 9 of 11 on the road, at New York, at Boston, at Cleveland, at San Antonio. They come home for a game against the Sacramento Kings on November 20th. Then they're at Dallas, back at home against Denver. Then they are at New Orleans, at the Clippers, at Sacramento, at San Antonio. So all around that stretch of games, they will be playing 11 games in 11 cities, including Memphis, of course. But they're still traveling to and from the city of Memphis. I would argue that's probably the most challenging stretch of basketball of the season for the Memphis Grizzlies, at least when it comes to travel. There's other challenging components. There's 4 back-to-backs in March. The Grizzlies only have 14 back-to-backs this season, but 4 of them are literally in the month of March. That's going to be a challenge, right? That's certainly going to test their legs late in the campaign. Hopefully the Grizzlies pushing for a playoff spot at that point. Might be a little bit sleepy-faced, a little bit tired there. A tough back-to-back right before Christmas at Oklahoma City, and then they're heading to Utah, playing at elevation. That's going to be a really challenging. They might lose both of those games on the road. They have 2 games in Los Angeles against the Lakers right after the Christmas holiday on January 2nd and then January 4th. And it's really interesting to look at the schedule, see how Memphis's national television games play out. Only 10 on national TV as of now, most of them being streamed, right? NBC, there's 1 national game for Memphis, 3 national games for ESPN, but 3 with Peacock and 3 with Prime. And friendly reminder that the NBA is going to look very different this year. There is no TNT this time around. It is Prime and Peacock, NBC, ESPN, of course, still a major component. And, of course, the Grizzlies could get flexed into some of these games if they're better than expected. But it's also a window into how the league kind of perceives what the Grizzlies are going to be and what Memphis is going to do this coming season. So 10 national games, not the most by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, they have that international trip where they will be taking on the Orlando Magic. That's a big deal. Overseas in Berlin and in London. Both of those games will be on Prime. That's a really fascinating opportunity for Memphis to be on the global stage, a chance to play against Desmond Bane, as we've talked about. That'll be a big deal, taking on Des for the first time after the trade. But that's a big trip for the Grizzlies, and that'll, again, technically be on national television, but that's streamed via Prime. That one game that Memphis is currently slated for NBC is on a Tuesday night, and that will be against Philadelphia, the 76ers. All right, so they're taking on the Sixers at home, so the NBC crew will be there in Memphis. That'll be kind of cool to see. But I'm curious to see how this all plays out. They have 4 2-game series this coming season against the Lakers, against the Magic, obviously in the travel, the European series, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then the Portland Trail Blazers. That is a really impressive slate in terms of opportunities for Memphis to maybe pick up some wins against the Lakers and the Timberwolves in particular, teams that maybe they shouldn't pick up additional wins on. And it's also a chance, and there's not travel with the Lakers. You know, they're staying in LA for an extended period of time right after the holidays. That might be a little bit concerning. Fish, again, at the Fish Nation on X, points out that they have the longest homestand of the season is to basically close out the season just about. They have 6 games in a row at home from March 25th until April 3rd. Goodness gracious, that's a lot of games at home. And those they're important games. San Antonio, Houston, Chicago, Phoenix is going to be important, maybe for different reasons, trying to help their own draft odds. Dallas and then Toronto. So there are 6 games right there in the end, that closing stretch of the campaign, where Memphis is going to be able to get off their feet a little bit after a tougher March. We talked about the back-to-backs and the travel there in March. A little bit lighter in terms of finishing up at home with this schedule. So I am optimistic looking at this schedule that the Grizzlies are going to find a way to, especially early on, get off to a hot start. And I'm sure that DeMichael and I will talk more about in future episodes of this podcast just how significant that hot start is going to be for Memphis, especially considering that they are likely to be without Zach Edey for much, if not all, of those first 11 games. So having New Orleans at home, Miami at home, Indiana at home, being able to play those games against teams that maybe don't have traditionally dominant centers. You know, Bam Adebayo is unique. Ware is unique. They don't have those, Jay Huff might be the starting center for the Indiana Pacers. You're talking about a team and that needs all the help they can get. And then after that, their first road game of the season on a Monday is against the Golden State Warriors, and playing the Warriors, Draymond Green, not a traditional center. They have a chance to kind of ease into this stretch where they may not have Zach Edey to begin the campaign. It's likely, 10, 15 games could be missed for Zach. We've talked about that. So that's an important piece of the schedule breakdown as well. But again, at the Fish Nation, a phenomenal guy, a great follow on X. I love his schedule backdrop and breakdown. I think he nailed it right? In terms of the significant stretches, the longest road trip, a 5-game road trip where the team will be out literally for an entire week heading into the All-Star break. So that means Memphis will play their last home game before the break on February 2nd against Minnesota, and then they will not play at home again until the Utah Jazz play against the Grizzlies at home on February 20th. So that's basically 2.5 weeks where FedEx Forum will not have Grizzlies basketball. I have a feeling there'll be some Tigers basketball being played in the gym during that time. Let me know on X. Hit me up in the comments. How are you feeling about the schedule? Shout out to the Fish Nation. Make sure you're looking at those breakdowns if you haven't already done so on X as soon as possible. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we are going to discuss one-on-one tournament, competition coming to Memphis, how the Grizzlies version of this might work out. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th, that's tomorrow, is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, Jaden Daniels, cough, cough, eyeing a long shot division winner, Tennessee Titans, cough, cough, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, Washington Commanders, cough, cough, this is your moment. There are so many opportunities for you to take a flyer on the MVP race, crown a champion, or parlay division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets right now because Futures Day is only one day and one day only. It's your chance to bet on the Tennessee Titans, the Washington Commanders, and so many more teams over at FanDuel. Play your game. So I got to be honest with you, dear listener, dear viewer. I was never much of a one-on-one basketball player. That's probably not going to surprise you very much. I was a big in my basketball playing days, and I was not somebody that had the sweetest handle. You know, to go back to a recent episode of the show that we did, I didn't have the deepest bag, if you know what I'm saying. If you catch my meaning, my bag wasn't as deep as perhaps somebody else's bag would be. So I wasn't always the best one-on-one guy. I would try to get people in the box, down on the block, try to keep people in front of me, but guards, you know, would usually cook me a little bit in those one-on-one situations. But Memphis certainly seems like a place that could be kind of driven by these one-on-one opportunities. And that is exactly what is being bet on when it comes to the upcoming event in Memphis. Former Memphis basketball star Willie Kemp bringing the city's best players for one-on-one tournament. This is from our best friend, our buddy, our pal, our chum, to Michael Cole over at the Commercial Appeal. Summer months bring out the best basketball players in Memphis. Not only are the newest Memphis Tigers recruiters getting adjusted, but local pros who play all over the world come home and unite on the hardwood. That's usually displayed through a Pro-Am, but TIG founder and former Tigers basketball player Willie Kemp is bringing a one-on-one basketball tournament to Memphis. The tournament will feature some of Memphis's best players, and a $5,000 prize is on the line. This is all kind of being bred by the Michael Beasley and Lance Stevenson matchup that got a lot of interest on social media platforms. People are talking about it around the world. And again, this is from DeMichael's piece. This one-on-one tournament is another way that Kemp wants to give back to the city of Memphis that he says he has done a lot for him. Here are the rules. Only 20 players will participate, even though more than double that showed interest. There's single elimination with a champion being crowned on August 23rd. That, recently just happened. Kemp and Platform Basketball's Chan Douglas are looking for experienced players rounding out the field, and it's really interesting to see how all of this played out, right? So shout out to Kemp for doing this tournament, for putting it together. I'm impressed that this was even a possibility for this group. I was really surprised when you had people like Chris Jones, Melrose legend Chris Jones, shout out to Devin Walker on X, posting about it, hitting big shots. There was clutch moments and opportunities to win in his round 2 matchup of the tournament. Jeremiah Miller won the Memphis basketball one-on-one tournament and the $5,000 prize that went with it. And Miller was not somebody that was expected to win. You had so many people that thought could be in the mix outside of that. Our Arkansas State guard Donald Boone, for example. This is a major piece of this in terms of what makes Memphis great, right? We talk about hoopers, we talk about ballers, those sorts of things. the city is unique in that way. So shout out to Kemp in the tournament and congratulations to the winner. If the Memphis Grizzlies participated, right, who would be the best one-on-one players for the Grizzlies? Obviously, John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., right? Those are two guys that are pretty obvious choices. I would say the 1 seed would probably be Jaren Jackson Jr. because of his size. Now, Ja obviously is quick, has a great handle. I think the limitations in his pull-up game, his outside shot, Jaren would be able to kind of dare Ja to take shots, and Jaren obviously would have the big size advantage when he had the ball. So I would imagine that we would see some success there for Jaren in the one-on-one tournament. I also think that Gigi Jackson has a pretty deep bag. We talk about having a bag or not having a bag. I think Gigi's got a bag when it comes to the skill of scoring the basketball. I would imagine Gigi would have some success in this environment. And I think that maybe even more so than Ja, he could give Jaren a little bit of trouble because of his athleticism, because of his handle. He does have a little bit of a perimeter game, about the same as Ja, maybe a little bit better. But I do think that what we have to understand here is in one-on-one, the biggest complaints that I've had about Jaren Jackson Jr. and Gigi Jackson is they don't pass the ball enough. Well, in one-on-one, there's no one to pass it to, right? So you can just kind of prioritize your own handle, your own scoring, your own space, and getting to your looks in a variety of ways. And I think Jaren and Gigi would both do really well with that. I don't know that I would take Ja ahead of Gigi, but I would take Jaren ahead of both of them, I think, in such a one-on-one situation. I think Ty Jerome would also be sneaky good in a one-on-one situation. Good handle. He can score and shoot on a variety of ways. He can use more of the court because of that. And again, I'm not an elite one-on-one player, but I do understand that if you have the capacity to shoot the basketball, it gives you more court to work with when you're trying to find your lane and get to your shot. So Ty Jerome, probably more than any member of the Memphis Grizzlies currently, has that capacity, at least from three, to be a threat. So you got to respect his game on that end of the court. So I would go those four, I think. I think John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Ty Jerome, Gigi Jackson would be my top four options. I'm definitely not fearing Jalen Wells or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in this space. You got to be able to get to your own shot, and you got to be able to make it for yourself. And I think the names that I just listed are capable of doing that off the bounce in particular. Jalen Wells is a guy that's more of a team basketball guy. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who DeMichael talked very nicely about in our last episode of the show, those are more team basketball guys. Zach Edey is most certainly a team basketball guy. Edey's not going to be out there setting screens on the perimeter for air, right? If he's not able to roll to the basket and have somebody get the ball in his hands, Edey is a much, 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 much better version of me. If he gets you down on the block, you're in trouble. But I'd say Santi Aldama could take Edey off the dribble. I would say a vast majority of the Grizzlies roster could take Edey off the dribble. That's not Edey's game. So I do believe that you would see some guys that would not be particularly good. And maybe you get some upsets. Maybe you think a Zach Edey would be able to beat up on a Gigi Jackson, but the opposite would occur. I think Scottie Pippen Jr., despite the size disparity, would be able to get past Zach Edey relatively easily in a one-on-one tournament with Memphis. So again, I think my final four would be Jaren, Ja, Gigi, and Ty Jerome. Let's say it's Ja against Ty and Gigi against Jaren in a Final Four situation. I think Ja cooks Jerome because Jerome has no possibility of being able to stay in front of Ja. Jerome could keep it close if he's able to get hot from three, but Ja has enough athleticism. He gets a block here, a steal there. He's going to be able to put Jerome, I think, relatively easily away in a one-on-one game. Jaren against Gigi has the capacity to be close, but I do think Jaren is just bigger, stronger, physically more developed at this point. He'd be able to bully Gigi a little bit more than Gigi would be able to do to Jaren. Plus the length of Jaren, I think Jackson Jr. would be able to dominate Gigi in a lot of situations. I think Gigi has the capacity to keep that one close. It might be closer than Ja and Ty, but Jaren advances. And like I said, I think I take Jaren over Ja in a one-on-one championship game because of his size. He still has the capacity to create off the dribble. He has that in his bag. Ja would not be able to. If I were Jaren in a one-on-one spot against Ja Morant, I'm letting him shoot whatever he wants to shoot, maybe a late closeout, try to get in the line of sight. Jaren probably wins that pretty handily. So Jaren Jackson Jr. would be my best Grizzlies one-on-one hooper. What say you? Let me know in the comments. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies. We'll close out this episode in the show talking about FedEx Forum renovations finally being approved, how that could look and how that could mean Memphis will be keeping the Grizzlies moving forward. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. Yes, you, dear listener, dear viewer. We are putting together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast like Locked On Grizzlies even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for helping us out. It is much appreciated. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber, a service provider. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. It lets you manage business calls, texts, all from a single app. And you also have the shared inbox feature. It's a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. OpenPhone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's OPENPHONE.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Closing out this episode of Locked On Grizzlies, I am Joe Mullinax, your host for this episode of the show. No DeMichael Cole this time around. He'll be back with us later on in the week. Thank you guys so much for being with us during this month of August and the lighter schedule for both DeMichael and I. Lots of things going on with both of us, but Locked On Grizzlies is a priority, and we look so forward to being able to be with you each and every time that an episode drops. We're going to end today's show shouting out Sam Hardiman of the Daily Memphian. In a matter of 8 minutes on Thursday, August 21st, the Memphis and Shelby County Sports Authority approved a document that will govern the future renovations to FedEx Forum. The Sports Authority, a quasi-governmental body that the Memphis and Shelby County mayors appoint, approved what is known as the design, construction, and funding agreement between it and the Memphis Grizzlies. The Sports Authority will be the conduit for public funds to flow to the Grizzlies during the planned $550 million in FedEx Forum renovations. The document approved Thursday will likely govern that renovation process. That is an important piece of this, making it very clear that the investment in the Grizzlies is here and here to stay. Lots of questions with one of the smallest markets in the entire NBA, renovations and this FedEx Forum renovations around the city of Memphis. Sam Hardiman of Daily Memphian has done a tremendous job reporting on what the Grizzlies are looking for in this process, trying to make downtown safer, cleaner, a little more beautified. Most cities have situations and challenges like this. The Grizzlies are unique to the city of Memphis in that they are the only major league club in town. And because they are the only professional sports team of the major ones, the biggest ones, that are actually in the city, they have more leverage in this conversation, right? The Grizzlies could very easily be a part of a move to Seattle or some other expansion or relocation kind of situation. Instead, they are in good faith, as Sam has reported in the past over at the Daily Memphian, talking about how they can help Memphis become better, how the city can invest in FedEx Forum, and still, obviously, the Grizzlies are focused on making a profit, right? They don't want to go into the hole as part of an organizational shift with the NBA. We're actually trying to lose money now. That's not what the Grizzlies are trying to do. So it's essentially an agreement between the two sides that makes it easier for the city to give this money without having millions upon millions of interest tied up in the deal. And it also allows for the Grizzlies to get what they want in terms of renovations to FedEx Forum. FedEx Forum needs some updating. For those of you that haven't been at FedEx Forum in a long time, it's certainly not an old building. It's been up for about 20 years or so, but it's been up for about 20 years or so. And when you're in that position, it certainly could use a little bit of TLC, tender love and care. And you want to make it a state-of-the-art or as close to state-of-the-art as you can building in a marketplace and in a city that is trying to improve its image and also become a place that is more desirable for tourists and vacations and all those sorts of things. The Grizzlies are a major pool for that. And obviously FedEx Forum doesn't just host the Memphis Grizzlies. It hosts the Memphis Tigers basketball team. It hosts concerts and other sorts of events. So the overall investment in the city, this is a key component of that, a major cog to that. And beyond that, it allows for Memphis to say, we are serious about keeping the Grizzlies. We're putting our money where our mouth is. So it's optimistic. It's a positive, if you're asking me, if this is happening in the right time period. Obviously, you'd always like it to be a little bit faster, but the lease is up in 5 years or 4 years in 2029. Lots of rumbles of concern whether or not the Grizzlies could possibly leave the city. This is a major step forward in terms of keeping the Grizzlies in Memphis, signing another long-term lease with FedEx Forum in the city of Memphis, and being a part of the culture of the city for years and years to come, because this is a really important team. Obviously, a basketball team can't solve racism. It can't solve socioeconomic inequality. It can't cure the ills that are impacting the city of Memphis, its surrounding metropolitan area, and so many other cities and metropolitan areas in the city. But there is a unifying factor. There is an economic advantage to having a team like the Memphis Grizzlies in the city, especially their downtown. There are so many positives for the city of Memphis, not just in terms of having a basketball team, but being a place that is a desirable destination in the Mid-South region to come for an event, to spend time, spend your money, more importantly than spending your time. This was a no-brainer to me. But again, in a city like Memphis, where you're one of the smallest markets in the NBA, how that $550 million gets accounted for, how it gets loaned out, the amount of time that the city can give this money to this conduit of the Sports Authority and being able to get it to the Grizzlies so there's not a bunch of interest that will hurt the city financially. It's all about making it make the most sense for everybody involved and keeping the ball moving forward toward a new lease agreement. And we're definitely closer to that today than we were a few days ago. So again, shout out to Samuel Hardiman of the Daily Memphian. It's official. Sports Authority okays funding agreement for FedEx Forum renovations. One step closer to the Grizzlies sticking around in Memphis for the long haul, even beyond the long haul that they've already been in the city. Thank you so much for being with us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. It is much appreciated. Making us your first listen today. Thank you. Thank you. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The next time that we are here, wherever you check out podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, YouTube, the next time you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing, wherever it is you get those shows, DeMichael Cole and I will be back together. The dynamic duo will ride once more. I am curious how DeMichael sees the coaching staff interacting with the reserves in particular and how you maximize a Ty Jerome, a Santi Aldama, imperfect pieces that are going to be such important contributors to what these Grizzlies are trying to do. Ja and Jaren are going to get the highlights, but if you don't get contributions from key scoring reserves, it's going to be a really long season for these Grizzlies, even if they have healthy Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. campaigns. You would rather be in the conversation for the playoffs as opposed to the play-in. A lot of things have to go right. Maybe we'll talk about some of those other guys and those other things that have to go right for Memphis to be in the playoff conversation as opposed to the play-in. Thank you again, wherever you're checking out the show, for being with me on this installment of Locked On Grizzlies. We will catch you next time on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Google, literally anywhere you get podcasts. I'm Joe Mullinax. Thank you again. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Grizzlies.